Thank you,
Chairman Thune.
Senator Blunt, and I know at this point in the hearing, too, that everything's been asked, so I'm sure you've answered these questions, but I do want to thank you, Senator Blunt, for having the hearing today to discuss the TSA Modernization Act that we introduced yesterday along with Senators Nelson and Cantwell. As with the FAA reauthorization, I'm pleased that we came to agreement on a package of practical reforms to improve aviation security, and building on the successful enactment of a host of security enhancements last year, I think this authorizing legislation would make important improvements to aviation security as well as the passenger travel experience. And in developing the legislation, the committee engaged with TSA officials and with industry stakeholders to ensure that workable solutions with the greatest impact were included. And particularly, I appreciate the effort of those represented on this panel, the TSA and others, to help shape the legislation. We plan to consider the bill at our markup next week, and so I just have a few questions that perhaps build on or maybe are redundant with what's already been asked. But you talked a little bit about some of these issues I know already. But this past May, the Aviation Security Advisory Committee, and I'll direct this to Mr. Alterman, which you chair, released a Checkpoint of the Future report required by the FAA Extension Safety and Security Act of 2016. The report made a series of industry and stakeholder recommendations to TSA outlining how the agency can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of passenger screening checkpoints at U.S. airports. The question is, in the Modernization Act, we would formally authorize the Innovation Task Force to assess the impact of using some of these exciting new technologies such as biometrics. Do you think that these and other provisions from the bill will truly help TSA to develop a checkpoint of the future while also increasing security, and what are the key things to look for in implementation of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that we're moving forward well on that issue. I have to do a little bit of a shout out to our new Security Technology Subcommittee, which is a committee that was actually formed after the recent act. They did one heck of a job in turning out that report, and they should get the credit for that. TSA has accepted that report and is moving forward. I think in combination with the Innovation Task Force, either as it is today or as it will be after this legislation, hopefully, I think that the agency is committed to doing those things, but the devil is always in the details, and there are a whole lot of moving parts in working toward a checkpoint of the future that both enhances security and enhances passenger acceptance of them and passenger throughput. Those are tough issues, and I think that what the report did is set down a baseline for TSA to consider, and I hope that report is used by the Innovation Task Force in developing new recommendations for TSA. It's a fairly new report. I believe it was submitted to the Congress in July, and things don't always move as quickly as a lot of us like, but I think it was a very good start, and I'm hoping that we can look forward to some good results out of that. I might say that in terms of ASAC and in terms of what we do, there's been a sort of a change in the way we operate. It used to be, we understand that we're just an advisory committee. We can't tell TSA to do things. We just give them advice. What we have told them, though, in the past few years is, if you accept our recommendations, we are going to follow through on implementation. We're not just going to let it sit. And so we intend to follow through and find out exactly how they're going to react and how they're going to implement those recommendations. I'm not sure just having them accept recommendations is good enough. We need to follow through on the implementation. The question's a good one, and it's a little early to tell exactly how it's going to come out, but I think it's a good start. Okay.
Well, we would look forward to working with you to ensure that those do get implemented, given the advisory role of your task force. Ms. Presnell, one of the major themes of the TSA Modernization Act is finding ways to speed up TSA's deployment of the latest security technology at airports. For example, one provision instructs TSA to authorize the third-party testing and evaluation of security screening equipment in an effort to enable faster deployment of the latest and most effective screening technologies. Can you explain how this and other provisions in this bill will assist TSA in getting the most advanced technology out into the field at a faster rate than is currently able to?
Mr. Thune, thank you so much for that question. Bottom line is it takes too long. It simply takes too long to get technology from start to finish and deployed in the airports. And in large part, because the process for testing and setting requirements and then testing gets bogged down. So lots of times we have a technology that goes through the lab, it gets certified, and then we go on to operational testing, where we end up getting through testing and then we get bogged down by administrative type reports. What the third-party testing process would do, and would be extraordinarily helpful to us, in that it would cut down significantly on the time that it would take to get us through the process. And that primarily would be because we could be testing things that are the non-requirements that could get us through a lot faster. We spend a lot of time testing and then retesting, and then of course going through the reporting phase that can sometimes take months. But going through a third-party testing process would certainly help us field technology a lot faster, simply because we're able to in some cases with your bill, maybe do some of the testing in our own facilities and other contracting facilities where this type of thing could occur. The bottom line for third-party testing, to really make it work, though, is to make sure that when it's complete, that TSA will readily accept the results. And that's a key factor for us, because we're taking our technology. It takes a lot of money to go through the process. But if it's not accepted at the end, it's just going to slow down the process even more. So that would be the only limitation that we can see, and we would certainly recommend that TSA accept the results at the end of the testing process.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, my time's expired. Thank you. Thank you, over.
Thank you, Chairman. Senator Blumenthal.